Let's get real. This story isn't about a vanity plate. It's about a public agency folding under pressure and rewriting its own rules on the fly. Bacurau had his plate ALQUDS approved and renewed by ICBC not one, but 2 years in a row. No red flags, no pushback. Then one LinkedIn post from the U.S. and suddenly his identity is flagged as a problem. Why? Well, that's the question, and today Backer is here to tell us how fast a government agency can turn its back on you and what that says about who really gets to define acceptable in Canada. Backer, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Lindsay, for hosting me.
So first off, let's start with the obvious. ICBC approved your plate ALQUDS not once, but over multiple renewals across the years. Then suddenly one LinkedIn post later, and then they yank it. So how does it feel knowing a public agency can flip on you this fast with zero warning?
You know, it's honestly shocking, Lindsay. I had this plate for over 2 years with multiple renewals, and suddenly because of one LinkedIn post, and it's revoked, no warning, nothing. It feels like my identity is tossed aside overnight.
I bet. Now, you're telling me that for 2 years, you drove around, renewed your insurance 4 or 5 times. ICBC didn't blink an eye, and then this social post comes out, and that's that. So does this sound like a policy issue to you or a PR panic move?
Honestly, it feels like a PR reaction. There was no investigation, no contact, just a fast response to a public post. It looks like they acted to protect their image, not based on policy.
Okay, let's get to the heart of it. The ALQUDS literally means Jerusalem in Arabic. So do you think this would have been an issue if the plate said something other than that, or something other than Jerusalem, or if it said Cali living, or are you seeing a cultural double standard playing out here?
You know what? Actually, not at all. Al-Quds is just the Arabic for Jerusalem. If it were in English or Hebrew, I doubt it would have been flagged. That's why it feels like a cultural double standard to me.
Backer, it feels like ICBC is actually just trying to retroactively erase a decision they already vetted and approved. So really, what message does this send, and really to anyone using any non-English name in terms of public records as well?
You know, Lindsay, it tells us that even when we follow the rules, we're one complaint away from being shut down. It discourages cultural expression and sends the wrong message about inclusion.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so the irony here is wild. A government agency in British Columbia letting a random person in New York, really, that's where that post came from, New York, dictate what's acceptable here in Canada. Now, why do you think ICBC prioritized an outsider's complaint over their own policy and your rights here as a Canadian?
You know, that's what makes this worse. He's not even in Canada, yes, yet ICBC prioritized his complaint over their own customer. This raises real questions about accountability.
Absolutely. Now, there's another layer here I think ICBC hasn't even considered. By publicly labeling your plate an unacceptable plate, aren't they actually putting you at risk? Extremists online now know your license plate and could target you. Has anyone at ICBC even acknowledged that safety concern for you?
Not even once. And that's a huge concern. That LinkedIn post included a clear photo of my license plate and my car. And since then, I've seen a lot of hateful comments, including threats, and ICBC hasn't said a word about my safety or privacy.
So accountability is definitely a factor here for sure. And what point does this stop being about a license plate and start being about the public accountability? What does it say about ICBC's leadership that they caved to a single complaint instead of standing by their own process?
Right now, this is no longer about a personalized place. It's about how public institution treats people, how it handles complaints, and whether it stands by its own decisions. ICBC's leadership failed here. They don't follow a fair process, and they didn't protect their customer from online harassments. That demands accountability.
Well, there's been no policy change that we could find. There's been no new regulation, just a complaint. So does it worry you that ICBC seems to be operating on vibes and social media pressure instead of a clear policy and fairness?
Yes, absolutely. And that's dangerous. If agencies start making decisions on post instead of policy, no one's protected, and that's not a fair system.
Fair enough. If ICBC's reason is that someone's found it offensive, quote unquote, doesn't that open the door to ban any word someone doesn't like? Where do we draw the line, and who gets to decide what's actually acceptable?
Exactly. Anyone can find anything offensive. That kind of vague standards opens the door to bias and inconsistency. There needs to be a clear line.
Final question for you, Backer. If ICBC doesn't reverse this decision, what precedent does that set? And what's your message to other Canadians watching this unfold?
If ICBC doesn't reverse this, it tells Canadians, especially those from diverse backgrounds, that their culture identity is always up for debate. It sets a precedent where public decisions can be reversed by online outrage. My message to others: don't stay silent. If this happens to me, it can happen to anyone. Speak up, because representation shouldn't be a risk.
Backer, why did you choose this plate of all the plates?
This is a name of a city that I would like to visit one day. It's really one of the a beautiful place with a beautiful culture and just a beautiful country overall. And it's one of the places that I've always wanted to visit.
Okay, well, fair enough. So let's call it what it is. ICBC didn't enforce a policy, they enforced a double standard. If cultural identity can be revoked with a single complaint, what's next? Arabic names, Indigenous words, pride plates? This case isn't about compliance, it's about cowardice. And if ICBC doesn't fix it, the message is loud and clear. In Canada, your rights can be overruled by someone else's outrage. That's not governance. That's censorship dressed as customer service. Thanks for watching.